So you've been coming to Florida for years now. January, February, maybe you stretch it into March. And every year, right about the time you're packing up to head back north, you have the same conversation in the car on the way to the airport. Why don't we just stay? But here's the thing though, you've spent 8 weeks a year in Florida, where you've had a wonderful time. And I'm not gonna talk to you about that because you're right, it's wonderful and it's the same reason we chose to move to Tampa Bay full time. But you've never lived the other 44 weeks, the other 10 months. And that's the part that decides whether this is the best move you've ever made or the thing that you'll quietly be second guessing in a year or two. So if you already fell in love with Tampa Bay in February and now you're trying to figure out whether it holds up in July, this video is gonna be for you. Because there are 4 things that are really gonna change when you go full time. The money, the community, the summer, and the boring stuff that no one warned you about. And I'll tell you where I land right now so you're not waiting on it. I don't think life here is better. I know it is. But the reason it's better is not the reason most people think. And the way people get this wrong has nothing to do with Florida. And here's why I really care about getting this right for you. A little over 7 years ago, my wife Kate and I packed up our family of 5, sold almost everything we owned, moved 1,200 miles south here to the greater Tampa Bay area where we've been loving it ever since. But it has come with its challenges and fears, and we had those same doubts and concerns. So I know what this feels like making the decision from the inside. Now, I'm also a licensed realtor and a team leader here with the Tru Living Group, where we've helped over 200 families make this exact same move. And not only that, over the last 5 years, we've never had a client call us and say, Juan, we've made the wrong decision and we don't love where we live. And that's not luck, you guys. That's the whole point of why we do this. And I've also seen it go sideways from the people who didn't have a plan. Because it's almost never the state you move to, and it's almost never the house. It's the fact that somebody picked a place that was perfect for 8 weeks in the winter, and then they had to live there in August. Because here's the reality, finding a house is easy. Finding a community that matches your ideal lifestyle, that's the hard part. And that's never more true than it is for you specifically, because you already have a Florida you love, right? You just haven't spent any real time with the other one yet. Now here's what you can expect from the rest of this video. We're gonna cover 4 specific topics in order of what they'll cost you. And we're gonna go at this at a couple different angles because some of you are moving inside the next 18 months and some of you are 3 to 5 years out. And those are really 2 completely different plans. So if the first section isn't for you, feel free to skip ahead because I won't be offended. All right, so let's start with the money first because this is the one you've already half researched and gotten 3 different answers on, I'm sure. Because right now you're probably thinking, yeah, no state income tax, I know all about it. And that's because that's the headline that everybody leads with. And for a lot of you, it isn't even going to be the biggest number on the page. So let me show you which one that is. If you already own a place down here, a condo, a little villa, whatever your winter spot is, right now that's what Florida calls a non-homesteaded property, which means on everything except your school taxes, the county can raise your assessed property value up to 10% a year, every year. And if you've owned a property like this over the last few years, you've really felt it, right? Now, the day that home becomes your permanent residence and you file for your homestead exemption, that cap drops from 10% to 3% at the time of this recording, or the rate of inflation, whichever is actually lower. And unlike that 10% cap, the 3% one covers your school taxes too. 10% to 3. Same house, same street, same you. And that's not just a 1-year savings. That's annual, a compounding one. Every year that you stay, the gap between what your house is worth and what you're taxed gets wider. And for a lot of people, that's real money. And the homestead exemption everybody talks about is nice, but the 3% cap is the one you're actually gonna feel in your wallet first. Now, 2 things I wanna be straight with you about. There's this thing called portability. You'll see people online talking about carrying up to $500,000 of tax savings on your next house. And it's real, but it's Florida to Florida only. So if you're coming from New York or Washington, DC or Chicago area, there's no tax savings that you get to bring with you. So that's something you get to put in your back pocket. All right, so how do you make this a reality? Because a lot of people have questions about how you do it. Okay, so if you own it and you're living in it as your permanent residence as of January 1st of 2027, and you file by March 1st of 2027, those are hard dates. Now, the county tax assessor's office do a really good job of making sure that you get all your ducks in a row. You have the declaration of domicile, you're gonna need your license and license plate inside of 30 days. You wanna make sure your voter registration is taken care of. And what that's actually doing is untangling you from the state that you left. And be sure you check with your CPA and your attorneys to make sure you don't have anything tying you back to the state that you're moving from. And one more thing on the money side that's live right now that I almost left out. There's a property tax amendment on the Florida ballot this November, and I'm not going to pretend to know that it's going to pass. It needs 60%, and that's a real barrier. But here's what it would do if it passes to your math. The homestead exemption on everything but school taxes jumps to $150,000 in 2027 from the $50,000 it is right now in 2026. And then it would increase again to $250,000 in 2028. And what that means in real numbers is you'd be able to take an additional $250,000 off the assessed value of your home, multiply that times the millage rate, and it's a serious reduction in your property taxes annually. Now here's what's buried inside that amendment, because it is a residency rule. If you become a Florida resident after December 31st of 2026, you'd be stuck with the same $50,000 exemption you have today for the next 5 years. So if you're considering this, really keep an eye on that November vote. I know it's going to bring the window really tight, but if you were someone who was considering moving in the spring and you have that flexibility, you might want to consider pulling your move forward into 2026 so you can take advantage of that tax break if it passes. So very carefully, because I'm not here to rush anyone. Remember, December 31st is that cutoff date. So be sure to call your CPA so you can get all your ducks in a row. So if you have the opportunity to pull it forward, you can, if it makes sense for you. Now here's where it really gets interesting. I've watched people take advantage of all of those numbers, save a genuine pile of cash, and still end up unhappy 18 months later, and then they've got to move back to New York or Chicago or wherever they came from. Which brings us to one of the main things that decides whether you're going to love this move or feel worn out in the next 2 years. And this is the big one. If you skip everything else, just don't skip this. The neighborhood you fell in love with in February and the neighborhood you have to live in July might not be the same place. Not metaphorically, literally. Why? Because there's a different number of cars, there's a different number of lights at night, and heck, there's even different restaurants open. Because think about when you've been coming, peak season every single year. The farmer's market was packed. The restaurants had 40-minute waits. The pool deck was full of people you actually liked. And that's the version of this place you've been buying with your eyes for years, right? Now, if you go back on the third week of July, some of those places are humming, same energy, different shirts, and some of them you'll drive through at 8 on a Tuesday night, and there's only 4 cars in the parking lot and the building's half empty. And neither one of them is bad, you guys. Because a quiet restaurant over on the Barrier Islands can be paradise if that's what you want. The problem only pops up when you're expecting it to be as live as it was in February. So how can you tell them apart before you end up buying a house in the wrong community that is a sleepy little town when you wanted something that was awake and lively all the time? And here's a little insider tip. The places that stay awake almost always have 1 or 2 things. Either they have that real town center feel with an actual calendar, a Lakewood Ranch, a Wesley Chapel, when things are scheduled in July, not just in season. Or an established walkable downtown with the local population underneath the visitors, places like Dunedin, Safety Harbor, of course St. Petersburg, Seminole Heights in downtown Tampa. Because most of those towns had a Tuesday night before the snowbird showed up, and they'll have one after they're gone too. And I hear a lot of you tell me you want a golf cart. And we hear this all the time on Zoom calls where a lot of our clients will tell us that they want a golf cart community. They want to take it to dinner. They want to take it over to the pool. They want to take it over to the beach. And here's the great thing. You don't have to buy into a 55+ community to get that. I know because I live in a neighborhood where we're golf cart friendly. We're only about 7 minutes from the beach if you drive or take the golf cart. We're about 1.25 miles away from the Gulf beaches. Indian Rocks Beach is my home beach, and we absolutely love it over there. Our neighbors take their kids on golf carts. We see this in people that we've moved to areas like North River Ranch and Wesley Chapel, where they're taking their kids to school every single day on the golf carts. It's really cool. It's a great experience, and it allows for parents to be really involved, and it keeps you off the sidewalks when you have to walk those kids to school in August, which we just went back to school now. Because there are those neighborhoods where that's just how people live. So the real question for a lot of you, it was never the beach or inland. It was never even which house. It's, does this place still have the action in the middle of the summer that I absolutely fell in love with in February? Remember, because you're not buying into those 8 to 12 weeks anymore, you're buying into all 52 weeks of the year. And that's a huge part of the reason why I say houses are easy, but communities are hard. You know, I can share with you the flood maps, the roof ages, the CDD fees, the commute times, the HOA fees, everything you can't see in listing photos, but we'll never really know what feels like home to you until you stand in it. And as someone who's helped over 200 families get here, the thing that we've learned is if we put you in front of the right communities, you will easily identify which one matches your ideal lifestyle, and then the houses become easy. Our job is to make sure that you don't step on any landmines along the way. Now, there's one thing about those 44 weeks everybody's afraid to ask. So let's just say it out loud. The summer, that's our real fear, right? And everybody dances around it. You've heard it's brutal, you've probably heard it's fine, and you really don't know who to believe. And the honest truth is, people who don't live here definitely cannot tell you whether you're going to enjoy it or not. And without the lived experience, it's really hard to share. And I remember when we first moved here. We moved here in December of 2018. In January, I was over in Fort Lauderdale. Winter's amazing, having a great experience. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and he asked me, he says, Juan, have you ever lived through a Gulf Coast summer before? And I said, no, why? And he laughed, and I was like, you have a very interesting laugh and a look on your face right now. What's that all about? He goes, it's like waking up to a Labrador retriever 3 inches from your face. And I remember him saying that, and it didn't make the connection. You know, I was living in paradise at that point. It was 75 degrees in January, and I was used to freezing my butt off in Michigan. So here we are. And this guy's trying to raid on my parade, right? But the reality is it can be oppressive. Some people cannot take the heat and they hate it. Other people actually love it. They don't mind at all. And I'll tell you, we embraced it. It can be hard. I tell people all the time, there is a point when it feels oppressive, just like your winters, right? There's that time, usually in February, when people start just losing their minds up north because they've got to get out. That's why they come see us, right? And the winters get really hard when you start seeing the car parts on the road, and like, you know, the snow starts to melt and then it gets cold again. So I understand, but the reality is I don't know too many people who wouldn't be willing to take an extra shower or have an extra change of clothes every day so they didn't have to live through a winter. And if that's you, trust me, Florida is going to be worth it. So let me share the actual numbers because they surprised me too. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, right? It's the middle of August right now that I'm recording this video. And the average high in Tampa in May is right around 88 degrees. For some of you, that sounds oppressively hot, and I understand. But depending on where you live in the area, especially if you live coastal, it's usually very pleasant. We have a nice breeze. It's awesome at that time. Now, once you get into July, that average creeps up to 90. That's it, 2 degrees. It's not a huge leap in between. I know a lot of people think it's 100 degrees here every day, and the real feels do get that way sometimes. I'm not gonna lie to you, but it's gonna be very similar to a lot of people, especially if you've grown up in places with lakes or water around you. New York, New England, the Northeast, the Midwest, we've got plenty of lakes. I mean, I had that 10 days to 2 weeks every single year that was crazy muggy and crazy hot in Michigan, just like we do here in Florida. It just lasts 3 months here as opposed to lasting 2 weeks. So that's not really the thing that you need to look out for. It's of course the humidity in the air. You know, we get our rainy season in the summer. You know, you can essentially set your clock by it. Sometime between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock every single day, you're typically gonna get some thunderstorms roll into the area, and it helps cool everything off. It's actually a really good thing when it happens. And that rainy season usually runs from July through September. And the cool thing is, once it's gone, sun pops back out, you go catch a nice sunset, it's fantastic. But it can be hot, and for some people, it's not the right decision. So my recommendation is you make sure that you come down when it's warm. Experience what it's like to live here in Florida for 2 weeks in July or August. Because April, May, and June is really that fake out. That's what we call summer junior. It's hot, but it's still kind of dryish. We got incredible evenings at that time. And we also have some of the best pool weather of the year too. Then summer senior shows up in late July and stays through September, like I said, and that's the real one. That's when it gets sticky. That's when you step outside and you can literally feel the air. And this is the thing that a lot of people get concerned about. And here's how everybody I know lives it, me included. You just flip your day. You go out early to do your exercises, whether it's a walk, bike, or go grab that coffee. As a matter of fact, Kate and I got 3.5 miles in this morning. Then she went and met her girlfriend down at the beach for coffee, and she was home by 11 o'clock. And midday, you're inside. You're in the water or you're running errands somewhere where it's air conditioned. Then around 6 o'clock, those storms have cleared, it's dropped a few degrees, the whole place smells like rain, and everybody comes back outside. And that's the part that no one films and no one really talks about. So the honest trade for that winter that you absolutely hate is 3 months where you plan around the afternoon. Versus, and I remember this well, but you're still living it, the 5 or 6 months where you plan your whole life around ice, dark at 4:30, and your driveway that has to get shoveled before you can go anywhere. And I'm not gonna lie and tell you that summer senior is a fun time. There are the people who absolutely love it, and I find that interesting for sure, but it is the price of admission when you move to Florida. And I'll just say, I've never met anyone who's made this move and told me they'd trade back for their shovel. And let's be real, there are people who genuinely don't adjust. And they're almost always the ones who showed up expecting February in July, because nobody set the expectation and they never came down and spent any real time during the summer. And that's what the whole point of this video is, so you're not surprised. So here's what we covered so far: money, community, and summer. And the last one is the least exciting of the four, but it's the one that blows up deals, so stick with me. So when you're only living here 8 weeks a year, a lot of what I'm about to share is someone else's problem, but when you live here full time, it's gonna become yours. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is start with roofs because it surprises people most. Florida law says insurance companies can't refuse to write or renew your insurance policy solely on the roof age if that roof is under 15 years old. Once that roof is 15 years or older, you're entitled to have an inspector look at it first. And if he finds 5 or more years of useful life left on it, they still can't turn you down on the age alone. But let's make sure we are actually covering some of these loopholes these companies take advantage of. And this is where the law and the market don't necessarily line up. The statute says 15 years, but these insurance carriers start getting twitchy early. And what we typically see is once a roof is anywhere from 12 to 13 years old, they're doing anything they can to get that replaced during a purchase. And to be quite honest with you, it is really a smart move if you're gonna buy a single family home to make sure that that roof is 10 years or newer. Again, the statute says one thing, the inspector can give us some leverage as well, but the one thing I've learned after living here for 8 years is a asphalt roof is not going to give you 25 or 30 years like it does up north. And there's a reason for that. Remember, asphalt roofs are made of petroleum, right? The sun is really hard on things, and our roofs tend to break down faster than they did up north. You do have the variances in temperatures, but I'm telling you right now, the sun is much harder than any winter ever was on our roofs. So what I typically see is roofs start to break down in that 10 to 15 year period. They can go 15 to 20 years, but that space in between really depends on a lot of factors. You know, do you have trees over your roof? Is it completely exposed to the sun? What's the angle of the house? There's a lot of things that get into that. And I know I got in the weeds there a little bit, but this is super important, and it's something to address when you're considering purchasing a home. Even before you write an offer and go through your inspection, look at that under disclosures. Make sure you're asking those types of questions because it matters a lot when it comes to homeowners insurance. And remember all those savings we got for you having a homestead exemption? Well, that stuff can start to go away when you end up purchasing a home that's had claims on it before. This is a whole nother conversation. We've done videos on insurance, so I'll leave it there. And if you do have more questions about moving to the area, don't hesitate to reach out to me and my team. All of our contact information is below. Heck, there's even a link to my calendar so you can schedule a time that's most convenient. Because when we're walking you through a house, I'm not just asking, is it legal, right? Are we within our statutes? I'm asking how many companies will actually compete for the insurance on that property. And that's one of the ways we make sure that you get off on a good start. And while we're on the topic of insurance, because I know you've seen a lot of headlines, they're completely negative, and I'm gonna be honest with you, we've had a big shift in our market and it's genuinely gotten a lot better. Statewide, the average homeowner policy is right around $3,800 a year. Here in Tampa, we're somewhere around that number. It is wildly different if you live on the coast versus when you live inland. It's also different when you buy new construction versus a cottage home on the beach, right? So these are things you have to take into consideration. I mean, one of the agents on my team, Ashley, she lives up in Land O'Lakes. She has a really nice home, large home, and her annual insurance policy is only about $1,900 a year. Stacy, who bought a new home just a few years ago in Wesley Chapel, is only paying about $1,300 a year. So you can see when you're inland, newer home, block construction, new roof, not a whole lot of challenges for the insurance company, you know, non-flood zone, non-evacuation zone, the insurance prices can be very favorable. As a matter of fact, we hear from clients all the time, oh, it's the same that I pay here, or I actually pay more than that. So don't believe everything you read. You have to do your homework. And most importantly, you need to know where to look first before you even get started. So when somebody tells you that Florida insurance is impossible, what they usually mean is coastal, older, flood zone. And that's a house problem, not a state problem. Which is why I always tell clients you should buy in a non-flood, non-evacuation zone. You should carry a flood policy on that home, even though it's not required, because they are very inexpensive to add those policies. Remember, we live on a peninsula in the ocean. That's what the state of Florida is. And if you live where I live, in the St. Petersburg, Clearwater area, it is a peninsula on a peninsula in the ocean. That's the reality of it, y'all. And I'm not just saying this for the sake of it. My home, which is 43 feet above sea level, actually was damaged from rising rainwater during Hurricane Milton. So when we're helping our clients dig up elevation certificates, the wind mitigation, and go through 4-point inspections, and that's the way that we really help you avoid learning those lessons. And 2 more quick things, and I'm off the boring stuff, and I guess it depends on who you are, but okay, the first one is healthcare. 8 weeks a year, you keep your doctors up north and white knuckle it. Full time, you need a real network. You need your primary, you might need specialists, a hospital you'd be okay ending up in, and you wanna sort that out before you pick neighborhoods, not after. Because for some of you, this is a real requirement about where you're gonna live. Others who have their health, it is basically a non-factor. And another one that catches people off guard that you really need to focus on if you have pets. Dogs or cats. A lot of condos or townhomes, if that's the style that you're looking for, they have limitations on breeds, they have limitations on the size of dogs and the amount of them you can have. Because some people are like, well, it says I can only have 1 dog, but I've got 2 in the second one's no big deal. I'm telling you right now, this can cause real problems with your HOA, so make sure that you're digging into the rules and regulations before you write any offers on any property that is multifamily, meaning that you don't own it outright like a single family home. So those are the 4 topics that I promised to cover, and I do want to get to one more thing before I actually tell you what to do. And that's the part that most people are nervous to say out loud. Look, I'm not a politician and I don't play one on YouTube, so I'll just share with you why we decided to move to Florida 8 years ago. Yes, we love the beach. Yes, we love the weather, and yes, we're sun worshipers, but that was only one part of the entire move. And we wanted to build something in a place that makes it easier to build. I wanted to keep more of what our family earns. And Florida has no state income tax, so that was a really nice advantage. Again, we talked about the difference in property taxes, and I'm gonna be honest with you, if I had the same home for the same value in Michigan versus what I have here in Florida, I would be paying about twice as much in property taxes annually, and that is a huge amount. And Kate and I really wanted to raise our kids with a little bit more room to breathe. But here's the part that really surprised us, and it's the real reason I say that life here is better. The people around us who couldn't disagree more still wave at each other when we're walking down the street. They still show up when your car won't start. They still coach each other's kids. They still act like neighbors, not activists, and I didn't expect that. So the real question isn't any of that. It's whether it's the kind of place that fits the life you're trying to build. So here's what I'd do if I was in your shoes again. Take the summer senior test. Come down once, one time, in the ugliest week you can find. Somewhere between mid-July and mid-September. Don't stay in a hotel on the water, stay in a neighborhood you think you'd want. Go to the grocery store on a Tuesday. Drive it at 8 at night and count the lights. Sit outside at 4 o'clock and let it rain on you. Kick the tires, live like a local, spend at least 5 days, ideally somewhere between 10 days and 2 weeks. And if you come out of that still wanting it, and most people do, you're not guessing anymore. You know. And it's the one thing I tell everybody when we're on a Zoom call. It should be a heck yes or a no. Never a maybe. So whether you're considering moving before that December 31st deadline, or you don't think you're gonna be able to make this move for the next 2 to 3 years, don't hesitate to reach out to me and the team. All of my contact information is down below. Like I said, there's even a link to the calendar so you can schedule a time that is most convenient for you. We'll jump on Zoom, open up Google Maps, show you the areas, really deep dive, and point you towards the communities that you describe with your ideal lifestyle, so you can make the right decision the very first time and you never have to regret your decision. And if you've gotten any value out of today's video, don't hesitate to hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe as well. That way you can be notified next time we make a video just like this. I'm gonna put up 2 more videos here that I know are gonna help you make this decision. And as always, until next time, go out and live that Tampa life.